Once you end up in the most secret and farthest place in the world, you can never leave. Here in the world, there are places that are so far and so hard to reach where only a few people can go. And traveling to these kinds of places requires intense preparation and courage because of their distance and limited access. So if you're going to come here, it's important to prepare yourself. That's why in this video, we'll talk about 10 places that are extremely difficult to reach. But before we start, maybe you could like and subscribe to this video. This is a big help and support for us content creators. Thank you very much. So let's get started. Number 1, North Sentinel Island, India. North Sentinel Island is a small island in the Bay of Bengal that is part of the Andaman and Nicobar Islands in India. It has an area of 60 square kilometers. It's almost the size of a small city. Dense forests and coral reefs surround it, making it hard to approach. Because of this, it is one of the most isolated and inaccessible places in the world. On this island lives a tribe called the Sentinel. They are a very ancient tribe that has never had any connection with the modern world. Their way of life has not changed for thousands of years. They do not farm or raise animals. What they do is hunt animals, fish, and gather fruits or plants from the forest to survive. They use small boats, but they do not go far into the deep parts of the sea. But no one knows the exact number of the sentinels. But their population is estimated to be between 50 and 200 people. Their language is also not understood because no outsider has ever spoken with them for a long time. Even the neighboring tribes in the Andaman Islands do not understand their language. This means they've been isolated from other groups for a long time. They do not like any foreigners or visitors on their island. They drive away anyone who comes near using bows and spears. In 1974, a group from National Geographic went to the island to study them. They brought gifts like toys, coconuts, and cooking utensils to show their good intentions. But instead of being friendly, the Sentinelese shot arrows at them, and the group's director was hit in the thigh. In addition, in 2006, 2 Indian fishermen ended up on the island after their boat broke down. They were killed, and when others tried to retrieve their bodies, the rescue team was also shot with arrows, so their bodies were never recovered. Number 2, Tristan da Cunha, South Atlantic Ocean. Tristan da Cunha is a small island in the South Atlantic. It is one of the most remote and hardest to reach places in the world. It is located 2,800 kilometers from South Africa and 3,700 kilometers from South America. Due to its remoteness, the island has no airport. The only way to get there is by ship from South Africa. The journey takes a long time. Aside from this, the island has an area of 98 square kilometers. It has mountainous terrain and a volcano called Queen Mary's Peak. The volcano has a height of 2,062 meters. Tristan da Cunha includes 3 small islands: Inaccessible Island, Nightingale Island, and Gulf Island. Of these 4, only Tristan da Cunha is inhabited. Gulf Island is used for climate and nature research. Meanwhile, Edinburgh of the Seven Seas is the only village on the island. There are 238 people living here. Most of them have British citizenship because the island is a territory of the United Kingdom. There's no cell phone signal on the island, but there are telephones and satellite internet. But in 2024, they got Starlink internet. It's now easier for them to communicate with other countries, but they lack big stores, hospitals, or colleges. The children study at a small school. When they grow up, they need to leave the island to continue their studies. Also, the climate on the island is mild, but rainy. The average temperature is 15 degrees and rarely reaches 25 degrees. The wind is strong and the sky cloudy. And because the island is far from other lands, there are many animals and plants that can only be found here. Inaccessible Island and Gulf Island were recognized by United Nations Educational, Scientific, and Cultural Organization as World Heritage Sites because of their unique wildlife. Many birds, fish, and sea animals live here. 3. Point Nemo, South Pacific Ocean. Point Nemo is the place in the sea that is farthest from any land. It is located in the South Pacific at a southern latitude and western longitude. The closest islands to it are Ducie Island to the north, Motunui to the northeast, and Maher Island to the south. Each of these islands is 2,688 kilometers away from Point Nemo. Because of this, it's among the hardest and most remote places to reach in the world. Aside from this, the name Nemo comes from Latin, which means none or no one. The name is also derived from Captain Nemo, a character in the novel 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea by Jules Verne. Point Nemo was discovered in 1992 by a Croatian-Canadian engineer named Hervoj Lukatela. Using a computer and global positioning system technology, he determined that this is the farthest place from any land in the world. Because of its extreme distance, sometimes astronauts on the International Space Station or International Space Station are closer to it than any person on land. The International Space Station is 400 kilometers from Earth. Meanwhile, the closest person to Point Nemo is usually hundreds of kilometers away. Usually only sailors or sea travelers pass by here. Related to this, Point Nemo is part of the South Pacific Gyre, a vast area of the ocean where there is almost no water current. Because of this, there are only a few nutrients in the water, so there are also only a few fish and other sea creatures underwater. This is called a biological desert, or a part of the sea that has almost no life. Because of its unique characteristics, it is also used as a spacecraft cemetery or a dumping ground for satellites and spaceships. Old satellites and space stations are often dropped here so they won't cause harm. For people, one of the most famous examples is the Russian space station Mir, which was intentionally brought down here in 2001. Number 4. Oymyakon, Russia. Oymyakon is a small town in the Sakha Republic. It is surrounded by mountains and far from other cities. It is known as one of the coldest inhabited places in the world. Because of the extreme cold, it is also one of the hardest places to reach. The name Oymyakon comes from the Even language, an indigenous language in Siberia. It has two possible meanings. The first is the part that does not freeze, because there are rivers here that do not freeze even during winter. The other one refers to a frozen lake because it's extremely cold all year round. The climate here is very cold. On February 6, 1933, the lowest temperature was recorded at negative 67.7 degrees Celsius, one of the coldest in history. During winter, it's normal for the temperature to drop to negative 50 degrees Celsius up to negative 60 degrees Celsius. The ground here is permafrost or always frozen, so almost no plants grow. In the summer, sometimes the weather gets warm. On July 28, 2010, the hottest temperature recorded here was 34.6 degrees Celsius. This means there's a huge change in temperature, from extremely cold to hot during some days of summer. But despite the cold, there are people who live here. In ancient times, reindeer herders only passed through this place to feed their animals. Eventually, families started living here and built a small community. But because of the climate, they couldn't grow vegetables or rice. Most of their food was meat and fish. They often ate raw fish, beef, horse meat, or reindeer because these don't spoil easily in the cold. Many things are also hard to do here. The bathrooms are outside the house because the water pipes freeze. Vehicles must always be kept running because if you turn off the engine, it won't start again. Schools are closed when the temperature drops to negative 55 degrees Celsius because it's dangerous for children. Number 5, Kutinirpaak National Park, Canada. Kutinirpaak National Park is a very remote place located in the northernmost part of Ellesmere Island in Nunavut, Canada. In the Inuktitut language, Kutinirpaak means land at the top of the world. It is one of the closest parts of Canada to the North Pole and the second largest national park in the country. It covers an area of 37,775 square kilometers and officially became a national park in 2000. Because of its extremely remote location, it is one of the most isolated places in the world. The scenery in the park is unique and almost untouched by humans. There are many large glaciers, tall mountains, and vast ice deserts. The extreme cold means there are hardly any trees or large plants. Surviving here is tough due to the extreme cold and minimal rainfall. During winter, there is no sunlight for many months, while in summer there is daylight for 24 hours and the sun does not set for several months. Even though it's very cold here, there are still some animals that can survive in these conditions. You can find moose, caribou, Arctic wolves, and Arctic hares here. There are also birds that visit the park during the summer, such as gyrfalcons, long-tailed jaegers, and semi-palmated plovers. Because of the thick ice, only a few plants grow here. These include lichens, Arctic willow, and small grasses that can survive extreme cold. However, human history in Kutinirpaak is nearly non-existent. It's so cold and hard to survive here that few have tried living in this place. But there is evidence that thousands of years ago, ancient people like the Dorset, and Tula once visited this place. Tent rings and food caches have been found, showing that the place was used as a temporary shelter. Likewise, Kutinirpaak National Park is very difficult to reach. There are no roads, no hotels, and no permanent residents here. The only way to get there is by plane from Resolute Bay, a small community in northern Canada. Number 6. Svalbard, Norway. Svalbard is a group of islands in the Arctic Ocean, close to the North Pole. It's part of Norway, but it's far from the mainland. It's one of the most remote and hard-to-reach places in the world because of the extreme cold and thick ice. Svalbard is located in the northern part of Norway, about 930 kilometers from the mainland. It covers an area of 61,000 square kilometers, which is almost as big as the entire Luzon. It is made up of many islands, but the largest is Spitsbergen, where Oymyakon, the biggest town here, is located. There are two distinct seasons here, polar night and midnight sun. The polar night lasts from October to February, when the sun doesn't rise and it's dark all day. Meanwhile, the midnight sun lasts from April to August, when the sun doesn't set, so it's still bright even late at night. Because of this kind of climate, it's difficult to grow food and do other normal activities that are easy in other countries. Likewise, only a few people live here, with the population reaching just about 2,500 people. Most of them are Norwegian, but there are also Russians in a small town called Barentsburg. It doesn't have permanent residents, which means no one was born and raised here. Giving birth in Svalbard isn't allowed since there are no hospitals for pregnant women. Because of this, they have to go to Norway to give birth there. In addition, because of the cold, there are only a few animals here. But with many polar bears around, it's dangerous to go outside without a gun or protection. There is also the Arctic fox, a small animal that looks like a wolf. The Svalbard reindeer, which is smaller than the ordinary deer, and different kinds of birds. Whales, seals, and walruses live in the sea, and because of strict environmental protection, cats are not allowed in Svalbard, so they won't eat the birds. In fact, Oymyakon is the largest town here. Number 7, Cape York Peninsula, Australia. The Cape York Peninsula is a large landmass in the northernmost part of Queensland, Australia. It is one of the most remote and difficult places to reach in the world. It is surrounded by the Gulf of Carpentaria to the west and the Coral Sea to the east. Its northernmost tip is called Cape York, which is the northernmost part of mainland Australia. Because of its remoteness, only a few people live there. It's also hard to reach, especially during the rainy season. Meanwhile, the land here is vast and mostly flat. There are also low mountains like the McElwraith Range, which is 800 meters high. In fact, there are two main seasons here. Rainy season lasts November to April, dry season runs May to October. During the rainy season, it often floods, making travel even more difficult. Temperatures here typically range from 18 degrees Celsius to 27 degrees Celsius, depending on elevation. Related to this, one of the best features of Cape York Peninsula is its natural resources. There are over 3,300 species of plants, and 260 of them can only be found here. Many parts of the land are covered with forests, grasslands, and wetlands. There is also a mangrove forest along the coast that serves as a habitat for many animals. In addition to this, there are also coral reefs. There are also many animals that can only be found here, such as the golden-shouldered parrot, buff-breasted button quail, and the lovely fairy wren. There are also various reptiles such as the black-headed python, lace monitor, and frilled lizard. In addition, 60% of all butterflies in Australia can also be found here, including the large Cape York birdwing butterflies. But long before the Europeans arrived, people had already been living in the Cape York Peninsula. The Aborigines, the original Australians, were the original inhabitants here. They have their own culture and traditions that they continue to preserve to this day. The first European to arrive here was William Johnson, a Dutch navigator. In 1606, he became the first foreigner to set foot on Australia's mainland. Number 8, Itokortormiit, Greenland. Itokortormiit is a small and remote town on the eastern part of Greenland. It is one of the most isolated and hard-to-reach places in the world. It was founded in 1925 by the explorer Einar Mikkelsen, along with about 80 Inuit settlers from different parts of Greenland. Its name means people of the big house in the local language. Because of its remote location and extreme cold, only a few people live here. Meanwhile, Itokortormiit is located in the northern part of Kutinirpaak Fjord near the Greenland Sea. It is surrounded by Scoresby Sand, the largest fjord system in the world, and by Northeast Greenland National Park, the largest national park in the world. As a result, many animals like polar bears, musk oxen, and seals live here. These animals are vital to the local people's way of life. Similarly, in 2020, there were 345 people living in Itokortormiit. The population used to be higher, but it gradually decreased because there are few jobs and schools. Many young people also moved to other towns in Greenland or Iceland to look for better opportunities. Because there are only a few people, it's also hard to find hospitals, schools, and other important services. In fact, the climate here is very cold. The average temperature reaches -5 degrees Celsius, making it one of the coldest inhabited places. The sea is covered with ice almost all year round, making it difficult to travel in and out of the town. The sea usually freezes for 9 months each year, which makes it difficult to deliver supplies to the town. Despite this, a major problem in the area is climate change. Because of global warming, the sea ice is thinning and melting earlier. This makes it difficult for polar bears because they need ice to hunt. Because they can't find food, they often end up in towns and become a threat to the residents. And in 2015, the Worldwide Fund for Nature created the Polar Bear Patrol to protect people and prevent the killing of polar bears. Number 9, Barrow, Alaska, United States of America. Utqiagvik, formerly known as Barrow, is the northernmost city in the United States. It is located in Alaska near the Arctic Ocean. Because of its location, it is one of the most isolated and hardest to reach places in the world. There are no roads connecting this city to other parts of Alaska, so the only way to get here is by plane or by ship. Meanwhile, the climate in Utqiagvik is extremely cold all year round. In winter, the temperature drops to -30 degrees Celsius or even colder. The wind is also strong, making it feel even colder. This city has a unique phenomenon called the polar night and the midnight sun. Every November, The sun sets and doesn't rise again for 65 days. This is the polar night, where it's continuously dark for 2 months. On the other hand, from May to August, the sun doesn't set for almost 80 days. This is what they call the midnight sun, which means there's sunlight all night long. But despite the extreme weather, there are about 4,500 people living in Utqiagvik. Most of them are Inupiat, a native tribe in Alaska. Their livelihood is centered on hunting and fishing. Whale, seal, and fish hunting are also important to them because these are their main sources of food. And even though the city is far away, it has a school, a hospital, and other facilities. But because of its location, it's difficult to bring in food, medicine, and other supplies. Because of this, the prices of goods are higher compared to other parts of the United States. Aside from this, Utqiagvik is also covered by permafrost, or ice beneath the ground that doesn't melt even in summer. Because of this, houses and buildings are built on stilts, raised stilts or posts above ground. This is done to prevent the permafrost from melting, because if it melts, the ground could collapse and the houses could be damaged. Because there are no roads connected to other cities, all food and supplies are brought in by airplane or ship. Number 10, La Rinconada, Peru. La Rinconada is a small town in Peru. It sits at 5,100 meters above sea level. That's why it's the highest inhabited place in the world. Because of its altitude, it's hard to breathe, and people get tired easily. The air is thin, so many people feel dizzy and experience headaches. Due to the altitude, it's cold with ice present and no trees or surroundings, because plants can't survive in this extreme cold. Meanwhile, it's hard to reach La Rinconada because there are no proper roads. The journey going here is dangerous because of the steep roads and slippery ice. Landslides and soil falls occur often. There is no airport or train here, so the only way to get here is to ride a truck or walk a long distance. Because of the extreme altitude, many people get altitude sickness. The symptoms are severe: headache, dizziness, difficulty breathing, and sometimes vomiting. Almost everyone in La Rinconada works in gold mining, but the work system here is different. This is called cachorio, where miners work without pay for 30 days. On the 31st day, they are given the chance to take rocks from the mine, hoping that they contain gold. They also have no guarantee if they will earn anything or not, so their future depends on luck. As more people search for gold, La Rinconada's population grows. Before, there were only about 12,000 residents, but now it is estimated to be around 30,000 to 50,000. In addition, life in La Rinconada is difficult because there is no clean water, no electricity, and no proper toilets. There is also no hospital, so if someone gets sick, they have to go down the mountain to get medical treatment. Because of mining, a lot of chemicals like mercury spread in the air and water. Mercury is a poison that can harm your health. Many people get sick because of dirty water and air,